Thanks very much for coming along today. I'm going to talk about 40 minutes or so around the state of cybersecurity report that InfoSecurity, and more precisely I, did at the start of this year. And extended play, this is a slightly longer version of a talk I did originally at InfoSecurity Europe. And it's the first time I've done this outside of mainland England, actually, I'm thinking of it. So, yes, a big thanks to all of you for coming, and appreciate that. So, just a bit about me. So I'm deputy editor of InfoSecurity magazine, been there almost 4 years. Former analyst with 451 Research, well, with somebody who's not paying attention. Oh, she is there. Hey, there we go. Briefly with 451, a couple of things, and I don't care. I'll put this in the bottom. I'm now two-time B-side speaker. This is the second time. I was at Scotland in about 2017, I think it was. So I don't care. I'll be a little bit proud of myself. Right. Just a tiny little bit. This is probably not particularly visible from the back, and again, just like Ivan said, you can barely see it here. A little bit of InfoSecurity magazine, if you're not familiar with it, on Twitter at InfoSecurity Mag. We write quite a lot of content for like IT security leaders, people who kind of do a lot of like the buying, the hiring, the purchasing, the strategies. We do some tech stuff and try and get it right. We do print issues. I don't have any with me. We literally go to press next week on the next print issue. So if you don't get that, drop me a message. I'm going to put some contact details up at the end. That's the corporate thing. Right. And I think I might have actually left in this one as well. This is just a bit of information about what InfoSecurity magazine do, and I'm going to whiz through this. We actually have a podcast now. We do weekly webinars, and we do a lot of, we do online summits. So we do a lot of content. I call it high quality. You can tell I didn't put that slide in. High quality editorial content and that sort of thing. Right. So what is this? Going to run through what the state of cybersecurity report is. Going to talk about what's driving cybersecurity now. A little bit of comparison to other things. A little bit of future stuff. And the thing I've been working on, which is a very kind of ongoing piece of research, is about how the trends affect people coming into the industry now. And then we'll just wrap up at the end. So I should be done on time, which I'm sure the organisers will be appreciative of. So 2018, last year, I did the first I'm going to try and get it, State of Cybersecurity report. We'll just call it report from now on. The idea was, we see a lot of threat reports, and anyone here who's worked in media, analysts, a lot of you actually. I mean, Brian was citing the Verizon report, which is one of the best ones out there. There's lots and lots and lots of reports out there, so it wasn't just a case of like, there's more, let's create one ourselves. We thought, let's do one that we actually write ourselves, we do the research ourselves, and we try and talk to people, and we try and draw up the trends, triage what everyone's saying, and sort of come up with the common trends. Did that last year. Got to 32 people. A lot of reports you read will be written by people like Poneman, OnePoll, various different research organizations. Not many have actually got a guy like me getting on the phone to various sort of security leaders, CISOs, CEOs, etc., and actually going out and saying, what's what we do. So what I did was I got 32 people, started a little bit late in the year, to be honest, and got this out in time for InfoSec last year. And these were the top findings. So GDPR was number one, 46% of respondents. Consider the fact this was research probably done about March, April 2018, right up in the run-up to GDPR. So hence that was top. Threat landscape, kind of 12 months on from WannaCry, NotPetya, and then board level, cloud is persistent, and then just like Brian was talking about, FUD and panic, actually, which is quite an interesting one to see come in as a top trend. We liked it. It was going down really well. People seemed to like it, so we thought, let's do it again, which is quite simply what I'm presenting today. So version 2 came out in 2019. As again, we started quite earlier because we knew what we were doing, and also it's quite easy to go to people and say, I want to do what we did last year, but a little bit different, or a little bit larger. So again, came out in time for InfoSec, and got to 60 people across the industry, and just because it was a little bit easier to come together. Started about February, ran through to about sort of mid-April, and from those conversations, 31 distinct trends. I imagine most of you, if I said to you, can you name me 31 trends within cybersecurity, you probably come up with about 6 off the top of your head. So 31 was quite impressive. These include 5 top trends. So 5 most common trends, as you saw with 2018. 5 lower trends, like sort of 6 to 10. And then 8 single response trends. I put those in because I think it's quite interesting that's only been cited by one particular person. And a previous time I think it actually was at InfoSec, someone said, what sort of people did we survey? So these are the kind of people that we were talking to. So as you can see, it's a lot of company people, which probably the easiest to get that access to, actually. It's kind of the vendor CEOs, the CTOs, the evangelists, and that sort of thing, as well as the CISOs. I went down the wrong way. As well as the CISOs, sort of the various practitioner side of things as well, that sort of thing. So that's kind of people we were talking to. So this was actually asked me last time I presented this was about 2 weeks ago, and so what sectors were surveyed? And someone said how many versus private versus public sector. I'll put my hands up. No one from the public sector in review. Everyone, 50 of the 60 were from the private sector. VC, legal, association, 2 analysts, and 4 from education, like, professors and that sort of thing. So if we do this again next year, I might try and sort of reach out, try and balance it out a little bit more. Okay, let's move on then. So from the 60 people we interviewed, our survey said the top trend then was product problems and sort of technology troubles. And this was a kind of a combination of several factors, which you can read here. As you can see there, companies stuck in the cycle of constant crisis, too many problems with detection, better tools for vulnerability management, legacy technology. Someone did actually say to me, what do you mean by legacy technology, a previous presentation? It's a tricky one to determine, actually, legacy, because to some people, I would say, somebody might say that something came out in, like, say, 2010, like the original Palo Alto network firewall, might say, well, that's now legacy. And I'm like, well, actually, there's probably nothing wrong with that. And actually, there's probably nothing wrong with the original checkpoint firewall if you're still using that, and you're configuring it, and you're making it work to the neat level that you need to work it. Commoditization of phishing. Obviously, the top one there, more technology and there are problems. And I've just picked out a few comments from the report. So, as you can see, for 16 attack vectors, there are 26 technology sectors. This actually did come from a CEO. In this case, it was Gil Shwed from Checkpoint. So he actually stood on stage at his own conference and said that we've got too many technologies for too few attack problems. So interesting that, it's the CEOs determining that problem. The big ticket solutions haven't delivered. I'm going to try and go slightly because he's coming in slightly slowly. And as I said, old technology, legacy, and that sort of thing. There's a determination. We're sitting on this old technology problem. There's some stuff that Javad did when he was at 451 about shelfware, which is probably worth looking up, actually, if you can find that, about how old stuff technology is bought, but just not utilized, and just too often it's too hard to configure, and we don't really use it. Right. I think that's the last one. Yes. So, number 2. A very broad, very sort of hard to determine topic is the human factor. 31% of our respondents say that. So not huge numbers. It's very split across the sort of the margin, really. No one's like, 70% of people said this. Like I said, last year was 48% compliance. But human factor, awareness. I mean, it was very used to put that very broad umbrella, a lot of things here. Awareness, breaches, technology, not being customer-centric, usability, skills shortage. That's still going on. We'll be there for the rest of the time talking about that. The concept of upskilling people is actually quite an interesting one. That would come from someone working for a vendor who actually said that there's no capability to get someone in and then push them up. Like a bit like Martin Lee was talking about this morning, actually, of finding people and actually training them up is a real problem, actually. And we've had this conversation about weakest versus strongest link for some time. So just a few points here. Yeah, we still have people with the weakest link, a few attempts made to support them. I'm sure we've all heard that over the years. Talent deficit. We're creating this ourselves. There's a feeling that actually we are creating our own skill shortage here by actually not being able to hire people who fit it. Now, probably in this audience here, it's probably people trying to look for the jobs, and people are sort of finding, you go up there and you find they're looking for things that you haven't got, and actually then you've got skills that they need, but it's trying to meet in the middle between sort of an HR person who's acting kind of like a buffer, which is a bit of a shame. And this one, it's quite a long quote, but social engineering, and talked to a couple of social engineers like Richard DeVere and Jenny Radcliffe for this as well. And obviously they did cite that. So there's too much of an expectation in the hiring process for people to be ready. And it's something I think industry needs to consider. And that certainly came out in the research. Right. Let's get rid of that. And we'll move to number 3. And compliance. This was an interesting one, actually, because when I started doing the research, this wasn't coming up at all. And I thought I'm onto a headline here that compliance was big one year and it was out of the top 5 the next. Sadly, it started getting cited. I deliberately tried to avoid people like compliance data protection specialists because they would have all said this. So I tried to get much broader. But compliance included things like GDPR, obviously, PSD2, some of you might know, PCI, and probably most of you know. CCPA might not have come across it yet. That's the new California one, which comes out in January. But yeah, some of the kind of common things there, frameworks. Number 2 there, disappointment over lack of fines. As you can see by the timing of this research, there was a feeling that GDPR wasn't really delivering. And hey-ho, this about a month after this report was published, we saw 2 fines coming out. So yeah, that was the feeling at first, that GDPR, we'd had this build up, and yeah, the media were doing a lot of hype about GDPR and how bad everything was going to be. But as it worked out, it's actually kind of come true to an extent. There were 2 fines, or intent to fines, issued against BA and Marriott within about a week of each other, I think, as I recall, in July. We're now practically in November from tomorrow, and we've absolutely, I don't know, that's the last we've heard. So who knows? Maybe that feeling is still there that hasn't really delivered. Just a few comments then. Again, excitement around regulation has died down a little. It's forced better incident response. Those of you who do IR stuff, maybe it's actually you're now seeing more value of what you're actually doing. And again, we've kind of just covered that, which the world expected. Right. Number 4 was company and board engagement. Again, only 18% of people actually cited this, but it was enough to actually get us into our top 5. And it's an interesting area because, again, it was sort of came up last year in terms of board level recognition. Now it's about engagement. Again, Brian said this morning about now the fact we have people actually are taking notice of us. If anyone's watched Jeff Moss opening at this year's Black Hat USA, the keynote's pretty good, but his opening is really good. And he says something on the lines of government, regulators, legal boards now recognize cyber, and how do we do something with it? So that's worth checking out. It's only about 10 minutes, and it's really worth watching. But yeah, it does drop. It was actually last year it was 3rd, now it's 4th. But the fact is I'm going to pick up some of the points here. Talking about business people in an immature market. Discussion between the CEO and the board is different, because maybe the CEO kind of gets it now. They might not understand absolutely everything. Board awareness, measuring culture. We obviously saw Know Before bought CLTRE, Kairoa's company. Don't think the amount was disclosed, but it does give a figure to that number, actually, to that value of actually measuring a company's culture. And just to pick a few comments out. Not the job of the company to make it more secure, help it to sell stuff and help them meet their vision. Boardroom was lessons are not learned, etc. And it is taken more seriously than it was in the past. So these are all these comments, by the way, these are actually from the research we did. These are all actually quoted in the report, which I'll sort of show you a link at the end. And then the 5th, sort of the last of the top 5 was automation. Everyone can roll their eyes now if you want, because yes, it's still there. AI, machine learning under that umbrella of automation. And it does have mixed responses, which we'll get on to. But yeah, the concepts were that if you are going to do this, you need to put like your whole oar into this, really, which probably most people can't really do. I'll show the comments in a second, but one CISO I did talk to, he was kind of building almost a grassroots security team. He's from a major publisher, and he was able to actually use machine learning and AI and DevOps, because he's actually starting out. So a lot of more established security teams probably aren't ready to work this yet, because it just involves so much retrofitting. As you see, too much FUD on AI and machine learning in an immature market, and that sort of thing. So again, a few comments from here. So anyone here who doesn't understand non-symbolic versus symbolic, I can point you to a Medium blog by Rhett D'Souza, because I had to look at that up as well when this came in. I very briefly said non-symbolic is what we call good old-fashioned AI, makes use of strings that represent real-world entities or concepts. Non-symbolic involves providing raw environmental data to the machine and leaving it to recognize patterns. So that's, yeah, definitely recommend that, reading Rhett D'Souza's Medium blog, then listening to me try and explain it. Non-symbolic versus symbolic then, and the next one. Yeah, a lot of hype. I said FUD around AI, even though it did come in as a very popular topic, it's because it was actually quite mixed. It wasn't everyone saying it's great. There was people saying, well, it's a trend, and it's something we're seeing as a trend, but you got to try and figure that one out, whether it's good or bad. And let's go. I think there's actually 4 comments on this. Yeah, it must be. I think this actually was from that CISO. I mentioned automation first, human second. Actually, if you're going to do this, kind of throw it all in, which I don't think anyone in store probably saying, oh yeah, let's do that. And I think there is one more. Yes, it's there. It offers immense value and fear, which does sum up probably the entire actual response, is that everyone's like on the fence around automation generally. So, and there you go again. Right. So those were the 5 trends that we discovered in our research. I guess what I've probably got to put my hands up and say, yeah, this wasn't a completely fair example of one year versus the other, because it was different people. There was a larger sample set this year. I showed you, the various sectors we covered. A lot of people there were probably large companies, but hopefully what we're trying to do is capture a bit more information about what the industry is actually thinking. And so I'm just going to scroll this down a bit. So yeah, so just to sort of, I haven't put the numbers on here, but 35% product problems, 31 human factor, 25 compliance, and then I think it was 18 for company engagement and automation. So, which compared to say 2018, which was much more of a compliance and a board level, slightly more technical maybe, but still business strategy stuff. There's no malware stuff in that and things like that. It's quite a mixed bag of responses that do suggest that the CISO is still very much, in the security department, is still very much business entwined and business engaged, rather than let's get down and hack all the things kind of thing. Right. Well, speaking of which, let's go to the 5 lower trends. So say sort of 6 to 10. So I put all these 5 up on one slide, make it a little bit easier. So cyber hygiene. This is a term that divides quite a lot of people, because to quote Ed Tucker, who was one of the people I interviewed for this, Ed came up with a line in one of our webinars, which is, if the basics were so easy, we'd all be doing them. Well, yeah, you probably would, actually. Patch management, sounds easy. Vulnerability management and detection and fixing sounds easy. Password management, everything sounds a lot easier than it practically is, I guess. But cyber hygiene is something that's kind of going around actually in doing the basics, whatever. Cloud. So yeah, it kind of came up last year, came in slightly lower this year, hasn't gone away. Cloud, it will still be a popular topic, I think, for ever. I mean, I've been covering security now since 2008, and people are still having that conversation of, is cloud secure? Now, considering that probably the 5th one there, agile transformation, I'll get onto that in a sec, does suggest more use of IaaS, AWS, and Azure. That does mean cloud should actually be slightly higher. APT nation state attacks and malware sort of, but just one slightly above the other there. I put malware second, but just below that, because malware sort of takes you in the more general phishing, ransomware, that's all the more general cyber attacks. APT nation state attacks, which was interesting, and also just following the guys from Kaspersky, is interesting that's come up actually, and I thought that was going to widely sort of kind of dismissed as a trend actually, but no, it turns out that people do still see APT as a big thing. And maybe that's just the world we live in now. Maybe it's the political situation. Maybe it's, the likes of the NCSC and various security agencies going around saying these are the big threats. NCSC did that in a story I wrote a month or 2 ago. They highlighted the big 4 threat nations, and it's like, okay, we're still talking about Russia and China and Iran and North Korea. So it is still a big deal. And just finish off, agile and transformation. When I started doing the research, this was really, really prominent actually, and dropped. A lot of people stopped citing it. But digital transformation has been quite an interesting one for 2019. It's not hard one to determine actually about how businesses security keep up while the business tries to be more flexible. But again, it did come in literally the 10th most cited trend. So an interesting one that I wanted to get in anyway. Right then. The single response trends. So again, literally cited by one person. You might look at them and think, I can't believe that one was only cited by one person. Bud bounties, for example, only one person who said that. Government intervention, different from the malware nation state thing, government intervention. Fuzzing, different audiences I present in front of, I either get sort of blank faces or people going, yeah. Fuzzing, I'm going to ask my hand. I presume a lot of people here know what fuzzing is, about automated software testing. So yeah, that came in by one person, and certificate transparency, GRC as well. I deliberately didn't kind of go and try and review it. Again, there's a lot more trends, 31, and I picked out 15 here. I did get a message from Ben Tom Have, who's been fun today. Ben has been, Ben came to me. Ben is one of the people I did interview. Ben used to work for Gartner. Didn't know where he works now. But he came to me, and actually this is a DM he sent me. Rather surprised there weren't more responses around containerization. Sorry, it's slightly off screen. Maybe it's been there these days. That's the word. Containers. I said, all right, Ben. Well, actually, as it turned out, 2 people had cited containers. I can't remember who the other one was. These were just some of the comments that the 2 people, Ben and the other guy, the person, I should say, came up. A lot more bang for your buck without overheads. Solid adoption of Kubernetes. Sizable lightweight systems. Those of you who know container, probably none of this is news to you. Better to hold containers and mature. And then holding containers, supports a multi-cloud strategy. In the times I've done this presentation, a lot of people with their hands up go, have you heard much about, someone said secure detection, security-defined perimeter, and I kind of think, no, really. Someone said a couple of weeks ago, Brexit. I was like, oh, God. And so I don't really want to talk about because he picked out very early on, I thought, well, maybe I should put this in because it's quite an interesting one that did come up. And so also it means I can put up a deal about Kubernetes. So just because also I had a long conversation on the tube a couple of weeks ago with a friend of mine, which at 7:50 in the morning talking about Kubernetes is not something that most people want to do. Okay. So I wanted to try and figure out how this stood up against other industry research. So I went to 5 different levels. Sorry, 5 different lists, effectively. Gartner, I guess we all know, 451, aforementioned Voice of the Enterprise. Cybersecurity Ventures, you might have seen them. Steve Morgan. Steve does some quite good research. Actually, he's very prominent on LinkedIn, weirdly. PwC. And then Club CISO came in just before I actually did this at InfoSec. So they've all done these kind of lists of trends that they determine. So what I did was I thought, well, let's have a look at what they've done, compare it to what I've got, and let's see how much mine stands up. And this is maybe not the easiest to sort of decipher, but these are the 5 trends in bold that I picked out. And again, screen slightly off. But tech troubles came up 3 times, twice with PwC, once with Gartner, human factor, 2 different ones there. Compliance, though, only got mentioned by Cybersecurity Ventures as personal and data privacy. Neither Gartner, nor 451, nor Club CISO are seeing compliance. Does this mean compliance doesn't matter anymore? No, compliance is huge still. I did a session, we did a 2-day online conference recently, and I moderated the compliance session. It was the most listened to of the entire 2 days. People still want to talk about compliance. GDPR is still giving people headaches and still giving people probably nightmares at night. So, yeah. Engaging the board, only 1. It's interesting that is at Club CISO, which I don't know a huge amount about Club CISO, but I know they're kind of a membership organization. That security culture, you could argue, is that part of kind of engaging with the board to an extent, maybe. Yeah, I want to put something in. Automation, as you see, everyone's talking about automation. It's always everywhere. So those were that's the main bulk of the main research. I say this came out in June, just in time for InfoSec. I launched it on the Thursday. So it's been out for just under 4 months now. While I was doing the research, I wanted to try and also talk about the future as well, and try and figure out how many people actually were talking about what's happening in the future. So 33 exactly of the 60 I talked to, actually, I asked, okay, what do you think is driving things forward? What's really changing things? And surprise, surprise, it's automation again. Advanced automation, though. As you can see, some of the comments we picked out here. I think I did 3. Let's say last year, actually, adoption of AI in automation as a future trend was 28%. This time it was so high above. Everything else was probably under 10%. It wasn't even worth doing a top 10 because, it's sort of fragmented percentage versus a 36% automation. So this was kind of the main thing really for the future. Now, what I was doing, this was a couple months ago, I was thinking, okay, I want to try and, this is all very nice to see, but what I want to try and understand is how does this affect people coming into the industry, and how do these sort of trends really resonate with people looking for jobs? Now, one thing that we do at InfoSecurity is we're quite keen on promoting opportunities for new people. We call it Next Gen. We have a section on the website specifically for new people coming into the industry. We sort of feature them. We, let them want to promote their work, do some writing for us. We do that. So I thought, let's try and tap into that and see where we go in terms of these trends and how much they resonate with the next people coming in. So this is very much still going on, to the point that I was literally updating slides last night and numbers. So I've interviewed about 50 people so far. When you're doing a survey of industry professionals, there are groups of people called PR companies where you can email them and you get about 12 interviews in about a day. When students, it's a little harder, let's put it that way. I can put it out on Twitter and I can tag in organizations and hacking societies and I don't get anyone responding, so I have to go through LinkedIn and find you all. So if anyone here has been responding to my emails, I really appreciate it. If you're feeling like I'm annoying you, please tell me to go away. But I've been really keen to try and get a really good demographic together of people. And special thanks again to Crest and Cybersecurity Challenge, who actually did some mailings to their database. This is something we're actually kind of wrapping this up. Actually, I'm going to probably do about another few more days of just trying to get some research done. We're going to then publish what I'm about to show you as a series of articles on info security, which will be free to read. And I'll probably do the numbers. So what I wanted to do was I picked out 7 questions. I appreciate this very stat-heavy presentation, but 7 questions that I picked out from those top 5 trends, or maybe top 5 to 10 trends, and figured out how do people who are coming into the industry deal with that. So one question I asked, this is bearing in mind the top thing about tech troubles and detection and all that kind of thing. So are people who are currently, it's either at university, like on work placements, or maybe in like the first year or 2 of their job, are they ready to deal with malware? And so far, as of kind of like this morning, I've had 51 people answer this one. So 33 have said yes, and 18 have been given no or more of a negative response. Here's just a few comments. More to be done. More routine. Not without industry experience, I wouldn't know how to respond. I wouldn't be able to respond after an attack, but covering all the bases. Again, it's a team effort, as we're probably aware. And so undergraduate, I believe the education has given me knowledge. So a much more positive response. People not feeling that everything's terrible, that they're terrified by the concept of reverse engineering and, suddenly kind of a ransomware lockdown. But at the same time, more people feeling that this is actually something they're ready for. So that was why I picked this one out, because of the tech trouble thing being number 1. Number 2 was, now, this is because of, I mentioned AWS and Azure, and IaaS is kind of a huge thing now. We seem to be covering this all the time, not just with the problems, security problems with it, but actually how to work with it. So is there enough out there? Are the curriculums keeping up, really? So far we've had 52 people respond to this. And yeah, pretty negative, actually. 34%. If you are in kind of training curriculum, and not this isn't me firing a gun at you, this is me just sort of saying, this is what people are saying back to us, and just a few comments back. However, the training is available. People just don't take it. You can find stuff on the web. You need to how it works completely. You'll see another question following this in just a second. Personal research stuff is out there if you want to train it. And also, there's probably training going on at most conferences and things like that where you can actually find out what you need. And also, I thought there was one more. No. Well, there we go. Right, next one was compliance. As I said, top 5 thing was compliance. This is one the fewest actually so far. I've had 49 people answer this. I did share this on Twitter and LinkedIn if anybody wants to talk, but we'll get on to that in a minute. With compliance being such a popular trend, are we seeing more demand for GRC skills in job ads? Pretty 50-50, slightly more yes. The sort of thing I got from a tweet I did yesterday about this was people saying, actually, yes, we are seeing this. Most people hiring, actually, people are looking for all-rounders, which we'll get on to another question. But just some of the comments we had, discussion coming up more often, people understand governance, risk and compliance, and compliance in particular. Or job ads are still very tech focused. Depends what job you're looking for, I suppose. If you're not looking for something with GRC, it's not a huge thing maybe, but I've seen this, especially risk ones where job alerts are in this area. People probably, GDPR is a bigger issue. It's becoming, or it has become a bigger issue. CCPA, if you're dealing with companies in California, PCI doesn't go away. PSD2, which is about payment services and does reflect quite a lot of stuff about GDPR. It's probably worth looking at. And yeah, it's worth looking at, and you can look at my article on info security if you want, because I wrote about that recently. So yeah, that's PSD2. Next question then was, one more. Compliance is always mentioned for audit or forensics roles. Right, next one. So then about compliance. Now, these are the frameworks I mean, like PCI, PSD2, GDPR. It gets a bit easy to get lost with them. Do you understand what they mean, how they're different? So far, 52 people have answered that. Majority are more positive, 35%, only 17 say no, maybe just because it's been all over the news and it's hard to avoid it. Again, it's very much this feeling of like you're able to teach yourself this, you can pick all this stuff up pretty easily and get up to speed with the basics. Lack of education, maybe just because universities, it's something that's rapid and is actually, moving along very quickly, so maybe it's not something they can adapt to that quickly. I love that. Not heard of PSD2. Again, probably worth looking up on if you haven't come across it yet. There's quite a good amount of material on there. Now, this was just sort of following on from the compliance and the cloud thing. We asked, would you expect a company to train you on the job? Pretty unsurprisingly, 39% of the 52 said, 39, sorry, not percent, it's 39 in total. Of the 52 we asked have actually said yes or given us more of a positive response. Excuse me. So, it's two of the biggest themes that are around at the moment are actually being able to work in these kind of cloud environments. They would expect training if there was a business requirement. They should. Companies won't pay for training if they don't have to. So great training around, online training if you can, afford it or you have all the time to do it. And, should train your new employees rather than just sort of throw them in. Probably you train them and people leave, but that's the way it is. Almost there. So this is this is kind of a huge thing going around actually around, levels of experience qualifications. We've seen this around in research, and probably one to look at here is ISACA, but where job ads are sort of saying, come and work for us when you need your CISP, which was 5 years 5 years experience. Okay, well, you wouldn't go in on day one and start your CISP training. You probably want 2 years. So that means you might have 7 years, which means you're probably 28, which by that stage you might want to buy a house if you're lucky, if you don't live in London, or a city. Maybe Belfast is the same now. But yeah, there's unachievable levels of experience and qualifications, which is preventing people from actually starting the job at all. So yeah, slightly split, slightly more in favour of the positive, and they are seeing the job ads. They require degrees. Some of you might still be at university. Obviously, the people we are talking to majority were after that university. It's kind of hard to reach those people who got straight in without degrees. Unfortunately, it's just that's the way things are working, which isn't particularly ideal. Recruiters don't know what they want or need, and I think most people can probably resonate with that. And next one. For junior roles, they want to be cyber ninjas straight out of uni and pay them entry-level wages. That sounds like someone cynical. It was probably Brian who probably gave me that. But that is actually I don't want to be Brian because he's not a next-gen person. He's older than me. So, people want entry-level wages, and that's unfortunately the problem, the way things are. And have communication. Now, this is, of course, with the board engagement stat that we put in there. Have they been taught to a level that you're comfortable with? Are you able to stand up on stage like I am and wing it for a living? Or, are you able to present in your hacking societies or things like that? And again, quite good numbers, pretty split actually, 26% said yes. Someone comfortable that hasn't been taught. So if you're going to actually be able to communicate cyber issues to a board and a CEO or anyone in the industry and actually try and figure out where things are going, are you able to actually talk about it? Emphasis is being put on these abilities. If you can't look someone in the eye and explain what WannaCry is or Heartbleed is, then you've got that sort of kind of overcome. And yourself and being able to advise what's useful in any organization. Right, I think that's the last stat. Yeah, so just push on to the conclusion, just sort of penultimate slide. These are kind of just what I drew up from my own sort of feelings. So detection's still a real problem for businesses. However, people feel comfortable dealing with malware and incidents. So things are getting a little bit brighter. Compliance, even though it's never present, people are getting better. Cloud is never present, doesn't go away. I think just believe the hype and automation. Things, it's not going away. It's 2 years pregnant now. The automation's been there and don't expect it to be. So if we do this again in 2020, I expect automation to go even higher because more people are talking about it. So just finish up then. So if you want to report, download the white paper, which is the original report, is available via this URL, white papers. Go back to about June, I think it's June 6th, I think it came out. The next gen stuff I've just been going through, I'll be writing those up for InfoSecurity. They'll be free to read. I just need to get around to doing it. And if you want to follow me, I'm at Dan Raywood, we're at InfoSecurity Mag, and that's my email address. If you want to, I'm still looking for a few more people. I'm going to wrap up the research in about the next week or so. If you do want to drop me an email and say, yeah, I'd love to answer some questions, and as you can see from the numbers, everything's anonymized. No one's being named. No one's being shamed or anything like that. It's all good. So, with that, I think I'm about 3 minutes under, and I will wrap up there. Anyone's got any questions, let me know. Otherwise, huge thanks for coming today, and I'll be collapsing in the corner somewhere. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Anybody have any questions? Yes, of course. We have a serial question guy here.
That's good. Makes me feel worthy.
Just in terms of the automation, I noticed that you were sort of conflating that with AI, but I mean, in my mind, sort of in the security space, automation would be a much broader scope than AI. I'm just wondering, like, is that what was coming through from the responses you were getting?
I think it's because we want to try and throw it as quite an umbrella term. A lot of people would talk about AI and machine learning. We don't want to split the vote too hard. We want to try and get it under one umbrella. A lot of this was, if we broke it down, we'd even have more than 31 trends. I get what you're saying. Yeah, it is probably two different things. AI is probably much, if you put it as automation and machine learning, we'd probably find AI probably doesn't even fit it at all. I would suspect that, I think industry as itself is actually putting those two things together, AI and machine learning, under a broader spectrum of automation. I guess someone like me to determine if I want to keep doing that. But no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I think it's probably one of those things that we actually would look at and say, actually next year, if we do this again, we might split the part. So
yeah, no, I was just thinking, like, in terms, even like with automation and machine learning, to me, automation would be like things like a sim dev, where they would take the use case that the SOC had developed, and that's like human learning, but they're putting that into an automated form for detection.
No, so. Yeah, I totally get that. I think yeah, it's something we'd probably consider if we did this again. Yeah, totally appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? Scanning.
Right next to it. That's 180. 360 even.
After a couple of years of doing this, is there anything that surprises you that hasn't been in the reports, such as industry, such as IoT, or anything that hasn't come up? Yeah,
that's a great point. IoT. Yeah, I probably have actually got the 31. Actually, I've got the 31 because I counted them. IoT, I think, would be one. I would be surprised that ransomware as a sole trend didn't come out more. I think we put it in as malware because there's a lot of people citing, web-based attacks. I'll probably put phishing in there but ransomware is an interesting one, especially for this year, because it was being predicted to be over. And then GandCrab retired, and then they came back again. And now it's a consistent trend again. I think we've seen it come back. But yeah, that would probably IoT would be an interesting one. So I think a lot of people, mobile as well, actually. Mobile's not really been in this. Might fall under agile and transformation, actually, mobile. But I still get people coming to me like, do you want to write about BYOD? Did we not do this 10 years ago? And with iPhones. But yeah, maybe mobile, IoT, and that might even fall under the same trend for people sort of for remote working. But no, that's good. That's a good point. Yeah.
All right. Done. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you all.
Give him a warm hand.